9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, it's a pleasure to join everyone on this call. I think we're going to go over a SPA framework that's kind of been somewhat neglected over this long period that we've been exploring Angular and React. We're going to actually take a look at Vue today. And joining us today, we're going to have Gregory to break down exactly what that means.
Hi, Arik. Thanks for having me on with you. And like you said, today we're going to be taking a look at Vue. And in a lot of ways, Vue is kind of the third and least popular of the major SPA frameworks. However, a lot of people really like Vue, and we thought it was time we addressed it and talked a little bit more about it. Um, I think a lot of people who aren't particularly fond of JavaScript and creating web apps might really like Vue just because of its sort of free flowing, kind of loose design and its ability to just have really simple code and simple apps that can be spun up really quickly and easily as compared to something like Angular. And so today we're going to be just basically getting started with Vue and talking about how we use DevExtreme with Vue. And here on my screen, we can just see the Vue homepage of our website at js.devexpress.com/vue. And here we can just jump straight into our documentation, and we can see under the Getting Started section of our docs, we can just go ahead and go to Install DevExtreme, and we can see how we install DevExtreme, very similar to Angular and React. Of course, we try to keep everything as consistent as possible. And so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new app here. And for this app, I'm going to be using Vite as the build tool. Anyone who's been watching the streams knows that I'm a fan of Vite. I think it's the best way to create SPA apps. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and say npm create Vite at latest, just like this. And I'm going to name this Vue demo, just like that. And I'm going to come down here and select Vue. And as we can see, we have lots of different options here. And I'm just going to select JavaScript. Just a quick note with Nuxt, we do support Nuxt. However, DevExtreme components do not support server-side rendering. So if you want to use Nuxt or any other server-side kind of frameworks, you do have to specify that it's a client-side component when you use our components. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and select JavaScript. Also important to note is in our demos, if I jump over to our demos, all of our demos for Vue are actually in TypeScript, as you can see. If I scroll down, we can see we have in the script tag, it says setup lang is TS. So we just use TypeScript in the demos. However, if you don't want to use TypeScript and you want to basically copy our demos, all you have to do really is just remove that lang is TS and remove the types and like interfaces or type defs, anything like that, and it's exactly the same.
So, Gregory, I have a question. Enlighten me for a minute here. I'm kind of really not acquainted with SPA frameworks. So, in terms of the difference, the three major competitors here for SPA frameworks, uh, is TypeScript more tightly associated with something like Angular? Like, is Vue more like agnostic about those sorts of things, or how does that break down?
Yeah, I'd say so. So ultimately, TypeScript is just uh, JavaScript with some linting on top of it. But TypeScript is definitely more associated with Angular. Angular is generally always written with TypeScript, at least modern Angular apps. React is very commonly TypeScript as well. Vue can be TypeScript too, but um, Vue, as far as I've seen, is more generally just regular JavaScript. Um, but Vue is very flexible, so we can use it either way as well. Like in our docs or in our demos, we have TypeScript, but that's just for clarity, really. Ultimately, any framework can be written in TypeScript or JavaScript, just depends on preference, really. And also with TypeScript, if we want to, we don't really have to use any TypeScript features. We can just say the type is any, and that just negates any TypeScript advantage, really. So that's quite possible too, unless you have some kind of like CI/CD pipeline that will prevent the use of that. Other than that, you can just say any, and it's no different than how it would be in JavaScript.
So in general, again, kind of a stupid question here, but do you feel like mostly TypeScript is helpful or it gets in your way when you're building these type of applications? Like, does it actually, I mean, I obviously catches a certain class of basically errors that you can have at design time, but um, does it is it more of a inconvenience to have to resort to something like TypeScript?
I'd say it can be um, for smaller apps. If you're a single person working on it, it might be a bit of a nuisance. However, it can save you in certain situations. For really big apps, it's definitely very helpful, especially looking at code that others have written. Um, when it comes to like performance, there's almost no difference. So that's kind of really a toss up. The one big advantage you have with TypeScript is that most people use VS Code, and built into VS Code is the TypeScript language server, and the TypeScript language server is the real advantage, and it's what I use on in this case with NeoVim. But that's the big advantage, is that you have the language features similar to what you'd see in like Visual Studio with IntelliSense. It's a big advantage because being able to see, type definitions and stuff like that inside your editor is very helpful and makes it much faster and easier. With regular JavaScript, a lot of the times you don't have those kinds of features, so that's the big drawback, I'd say. And so, anyway, so just going on, I'm just going to cd into that directory, just following the instructions. And I'm going to say npm. I'll just do an npm install just until we get ready. And right here, I'm going to copy our install instruction here. And of course, we have the DevExtreme package as well as the DevExtreme Vue package. And we just specified the current version here. And I'll go ahead and paste that in there and install that. And also, since Vue is a SPA framework, what we're also going to need to do is we're going to need to install the Vue router. So I'm going to say npm install Vue router, and this is going to install the fourth version, so v4 of the Vue router. And it's so that's about it. And just to so to get started, I'll go and clear the screen there, and I'm going to create a new tmux session in here. And thank you to you for getting me onto tmux. All right.
Yeah, I love to see tmux in action.
And I'll create a new window down here, or new. I think it's a window, right?
I think it's called a tab. It's weird. The naming convention, frames, tabs, and I think frames and windows are the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so I'm just gonna come into our project here, and the first thing I'm gonna do is in here in the scripts where it says dev, I'm just gonna add the host flag here, just because we're gonna need it, just so I can access it over the network here. I'm gonna say npm run dev to start the app, and we'll make sure it's working. And there it is. So it's all set up, it's all working. And we'll jump back and we'll stop that app for a second there. And if we jump into our source folder, we see we have the assets folder, components folder, and they've given us a basic framework here that we can use. And going back to our DevExtreme docs, we can see we have the style sheets right after the install instructions. And we've done this number of times on the stream, but I'll go ahead and do it again. What we need to do is go into our index file. Looks like it just quit out on me. Sorry about that.
Maybe you press Control Z without realizing it.
Maybe. That's okay. Looks like it's not very happy.
Maybe if you try FG, like if you do a foreground, so if you just type the command FG, it will maybe load like a suspended session of NeoVim. Maybe that might be the case. I don't know. I meant not as a NeoVim command, but as a thing, a command in the shell.
Maybe. I mean, here, let's just try it. No, it looks like it doesn't really want me to do it.
You can't type FG.
Nope, it's not letting me. Here. Let me exit out of that. Let me try this. Just open up a new thing. That's a new. Hold on, let me see. That's definitely a new issue that I've never encountered before. All right.
Yeah, that was interesting. It said that there was a swap file. So maybe it's related to your editor. It's related to NeoVim. It's not. I don't know.
Yeah,
There was a web server that was watching your directories for changes. I think that's what Vite was doing. But you already closed Vite, right? I think.
I did.
Okay.
Let me try it again. One last time.
Okay, try I guess just steal the swap file, just edit it anyway. I think maybe you'll be able to do it. Oh, interesting.
No.
Entry error opening file. How about I don't know if you tried to use the
I
command
wonder if I
FG.
can. Here, let me try this. So, let me. Do I have Nano installed? Yes, I do. So what I'm gonna do is, so we have the index file there. So I have to edit this index file. That's the only thing that's causing me a problem, it seems. Right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll edit this file here. So all I need to do is I need to add this class equals dx dash viewport in there like this. I'll write that out. And then I'll open it back up. I'll go into our main.js file here. And now I can import our style sheets. Okay. So I'm going to say devextreme/dis/css/dx dot material dot. I thought we would use the teal color this time.
You know, actually, I do appreciate a nice teal. I mean, it's a nice off color blue. It's awesome.
Yeah. And in here, just because we're going to need it in a second, I'll just go ahead and say use router. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this style sheet there because we're not going to need it anymore. Because we're going to be using our DevExtreme styles, and we're going to be doing a little bit of styling per component. And so I'm going to go ahead and import router from router, and I haven't created this yet, of course. And I'm going to say router index.js. So I'm going to create a folder called router inside the source folder, and I'm going to create a file called index.js. And inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say import create router and create web history from view router, and it's already got it thanks to Copilot. And I'm going to create some routes here. So I'm just going to create an array and an object in that array. And it looks like it's already got it, except I'm not going to create an about page. I'm actually going to create a page called schedule. And I'm going to change this to schedule. And I'm going to create these files in a second. That's why we're not going to be able to actually, or sorry, I don't even need to do that. What am I doing? What we can do here in the component, we can import it just like that, where you say like import home, just like this. And here in the component, we can remove this function here. But this is kind of cleaner, so I'll just leave it like this, how Copilot wanted me to do it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder here called views. And I'm going to create a file called home.view and another file called schedule.view, just like this. And I forgot what we need to do after this is say const router equals create router, and the history is create web history, and after this we need to export the router, just like that. So the web history is just going to be our page history, pretty self-explanatory, and the router is our router because this is in fact a spa app. So we're going to be doing routing with within our page. Under this components folder, it looks like my views folder accidentally got put in there. So I'm going to delete that for a second. And now the views folder is where it belongs. In our app.view file, what we can do is we can delete that. We can delete everything out of our template, and we can delete everything out of the style. So it's pretty clean there. And if we jump into our components folder, I need to create a new component, which I'm just going to call navbar dot view, just like that. And for this navbar, we're just going to use a simple DevExpress menu. And this DevExpress menu is going to make it pretty easy for us just to create a simple navbar that has some decent styling. And I'm just going to go ahead and create our template first. And inside this script up here, what I'm going to do is say import use router from view router, because we're going to need some routing. And then we're going to say import DX menu and DX item from DevExpress view / menu, just like that. And inside this template, I'll go ahead and create a nav tag with an ID of menu. Just like that. And I don't have a view language server, so it's kind of not doing the autocomplete very nicely. But we can kind of just ignore that for now. And we're going to say DX menu and at item click is equal to on item click. Just like this. And I'm going to say colon adaptivity enabled is true. And if we had a lot of menu items, it would be adaptive, so it would show a hamburger menu on a mobile device, that kind of thing. And I'm going to go ahead and close this tag. And inside here, what I'm going to do is say DX item text is home, and the icon is going to be home, just like this. And I'm going to create one more, and the text here is going to be schedule, and the icon is going to be a clock icon. Just like that, and I'll clean up that white space. And I'm going to create our style right here, just quickly. And I'm going to say hashtag menu, and I'm going to say border dash bottom is going to be 1 pixel solid light gray. And this is just going to give us a slight line at the bottom of our menu, and it's going to look a lot cleaner. And say margin bottom of 10 pixels, and that should be fine there. And so this is just going to be our simple nav bar. And if we jump back into our app here, what we're going to do is we're going to import that nav bar, just like this. And in the template, we're going to say nav bar, and below it, we're going to say our router. So essentially the page that's loaded with our router is just going to pop in underneath our nav bar. And what I'm going to do is I am going to quickly open up a new PowerShell session just off screen for a second. And
By the
I
way,
will
I
show
wanted
you
to
here.
ask, while the idea was still fresh on my mind, how did we resolve that problem that we were having with the swap file in that directory? Did we just step over that and start working on other files, or did we ever solve
So
them?
yeah, well, what I did was I just opened, because it was having some kind of weird problem with NeoVim, I just opened up that index file that was giving me the issues in Nano, and I just edited it. And all I had to do was just change that one little thing, which is add the uh,
Okay.
class here where it says dx-viewport in the body tag of our index file. So that's all I had to do. But yeah, and also this is actually a good moment. Uh, I just got reminded. So we support both the options and the composition API, of course. And the composition API is what we use in our demos, and it's kind of the preferred method nowadays. So kind of like how in React we would use functional components rather than class components, but even though both still work. So the options API, it's a little bit, it's not as clean in my opinion. So I prefer the composition API myself. So
So
I
is
think
the
it's a
op
little cleaner.
and for those of us who are kind of not really adept at Vue, which I include myself in, the options API is the version 2 syntax of Vue. It's the old syntax, and this composition is the new one. Is
Yeah, it's
that
sort of the
correct?
older syntax. Um, it's really personal preference though. That's the thing with Vue is that it's not really a rule. You can use either one in any way you want. So for let's say one component you can use the options API and the other and some other one you can use the composition API. It doesn't matter. So it
But
all works together.
I guess my question is that the caveat is that the composition API only became possible with V3 going forward. Is that the idea that V2 didn't have the options? I mean, only had options API as the route you could take.
I believe so. I'm pretty sure that's right. I mean, I'm not 100% on that though.
Yeah,
That's my understanding.
I mean, whatever your understanding is at this point, I think it's probably light years ahead of what I understand about Vue. I mean, it seemed like a that was one of the step from Vue from version 2 to version 3 was really big. I think in their library. That was my feeling.
Um, anyway, so what I'm going to do is just quickly, this is just another uh, instance, basically of the same folder. So I'm just going to start the development server there and open that up. And I forgot to add the template and script tags in these files. My bad. I'm just going to say home. And actually, I'm going to put the script tag at the top. That's just kind of my preference there. And I'll do the same thing for the schedule file. Actually, I'll just copy and paste that. And I'll say just say schedule there. And that should be working, and it is. And as we can see, we have this home and schedule button, and it does not want to let me click on it. I'll have to do some debugging. And getting a nice weird issue there, of course.
Maybe the
What else
route
is
for the
new?
schedule is not right. Maybe there's a typo somewhere.
No, it's not. It's some kind of issue in this navbar file. And I know exactly what it is because I just literally just forgot to add the function. That's embarrassing. So I have to add the rather there, and I have to say on item click, and I'm just going to create this functional component here. And I'm going to say if e dot item data dot text equals home, then I'm going to say router dot push and just a / because our home page is just the / in this case. I'm going to say return there, and here I'm going to say router dot push e dot item data dot text dot to lowercase, just like that. And now if we go back, it's working. So I just forgot to make a function. So that was the issue there. If I zoom in a bit, we can see that, it goes from home to schedule. And this obviously is following the material theme. So we have that material theme there. And also at the bottom, we have that light gray sort of border at the bottom of our menu. I just think it looks a little bit cleaner. And if we jump back to our code, we can go ahead and get started with the first component that we're going to make. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that hello world component and create a new component here called grid.view. And while I'm at it, I'll create this scheduler.view as well. And for this grid, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to go ahead and import some of our grid components, just because for some reason we always start out with a grid and I don't want to break the tradition. So I'm going to say import.
There's a little typo, by the way, in import.
Thank you. Import dx data grid. Dx column. Dx grouping. Dx group panel. Dx pager. Dx paging, and dx search panel, just like that. From DevExtreme view / data grid. So that's quite a long import there. And also I'm going to say import data source from DevExtreme /data /data source. And you'll note that this coming from the DevExtreme package, not the DevExtreme view package. And I'm going to say import DevExtreme /data /odata /store. And I'll close that script tag. And inside here, what I'm gonna do just to keep us within time is I oops I'm going to my copy and pasting isn't working. My bad. Because I'm not on Tmux because I decided to forget that. My bad. So I'll just have to type it out for us. Sorry for everyone to sorry to everyone making watch type and
It's fine. I'm sure we can pass the time while you're
yeah.
typing and digest a bit about what's going on here. So you're
So
just creating this new data source,
so the data
and
source is just going to be the data source for our grid, and the key is going to be um, ID, just like this, version 2 of the OData store. I'm going to say before send request. So this is before the request gets sent. Const year is okay.
okay.
So
So
go ahead.
Gregory, it looks like we got a question coming in. I think a viewer was asking for everyone who can't see the chat. I'm just repeating it back. Uh, One of our users was asking if we have some sort of PDF functionality, maybe to create PDFs or to view PDFs, or I don't know if we have either. I know that we don't really do PDF viewers on browser environments, but I don't know if there's some integration with Office File API, maybe. I don't know.
So what we can do is we can go here to our docs, and where that is right down here. So if we go to this section called data analytics and BI, we can see embedded reports. And this is how we can use PDF reports in Vue. So it's very similar to our other products, like sort of what you've been doing with Maui and Blazor. And we can see DevExpress reporting here. And we can see how we do reporting with PDFs there. When it comes to just PDFs more generally, what we have is
We have all the server side libraries, but I don't think that that's really applicable to Vue. I mean, definitely the reporting packages is probably the place to start, like you said. I think probably the that's going to probably answer quite a bit of um, the tasks that you have in mind, or it's going to
yeah.
deliver on
I mean,
those points.
when it comes to PDFs in JavaScript frameworks, we use a separate package called JS to handle like exporting in our grid and things like that. What we do have is we have a HTML editor.
So this would be the
So
lighter weight way of building a report. It's like basically glorified Markdown.
yeah, it's just HTML. And so we do have this as an option. Um, we and of course you can take this information in here and export it as a PDF using a separate package. That can be done. We also have our file manager and uploader, so you can manage files in the web app. That's another option. So these are JPEGs, but you can upload and download PDFs. What you can do is you can use this along with the HTML editor and sort of take that PDF, convert it to HTML, and then display it in the HTML editor. That can be done too. I mean, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, but we don't necessarily have an exact PDF like creation kind of tool. I'm sure there's probably something else though that
I
could kind
mean,
of do that.
if you wanted a more general answer to that, this is the person that asked the question in the chat. The more general answer is that you could do it outside of the client environment. You could do it in C Sharp. We have a PDF graphics object in Office File API. We let you draw whatever you want on a PDF page, but Gregory gave all the options here that you have. You have the reporting module that you can use inside of Vue, and that's probably your best bet. So I would recommend starting there.
Yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, just to get back to this, so in this before send, we're just gonna do some formatting, and I'm gonna say request.params dot and date and start date, not data, equals '05. Oops. -15, just like this. And down here, I'm going to say const page sizes is going to be equal to 10, 25, 50, and 100. And this is going to be for our pager, for our grid. And I'm going to just create a variable called collapsed and set it to false. I'm going to create a function called onContentReady. So when our data loads, we're going to say if collapsed e.component.expanded row is going to be called envirocare, and that's just one of the elements in our data that we're going to get back. That's just what we that's basically the row inside the grid that's going to be expanded as it's loaded. We can obviously change that, and we can have it so nothing's loaded. That will work as well. And I'm going to create our template here. And I'm going to just say dx data grid. The data source is going to be data source, just like this. The remote operation is going to be false. We're going to say allow column reordering is going to be true. Row alteration enabled is going to be true. And I'm going to say show borders is true. The width I'm going to set to 100%, just like this, and we're gonna have to put it in single and double quotes. And I'm gonna say at content dash ready is on content ready. So that's that function we just created. And I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna close that tag quickly. Let's say dx column with a group index of 0 and the data field of product, just like this. And I'm going to try one more time to copy and paste this. No, that's not going to happen. But what I'm gonna do is quit that, create a new TMUX session, because I really want to get done with this in time. So I don't want to write out all those columns again. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that. So we just have all these columns in here, and all these columns just, correspond to our data, to the objects in our JSON that we're going to get back. And I'm just going to have this group panel, which is set visible to true, search panel, again, visible true, highlight case sensitive. So it's just going to be case sensitive. In this case, the group panel, auto expand all is false. And then the pager, allowed page sizes, this page sizes variable that we created up here. And so we have the paging, and the default page size is going to be 10. So that just about wraps it up for this. And what I need to do is go into our views, into our home. And in our home, I'm just going to come up here to our script and say import grid from components/grid inside the template here. I'm going to say div class is grid, and I'm just going to say grid down there. And for our style, I'm going to say dot grid with a margin of 30 pixels. And let's just clean that up for a second. And if we jump back, this is giving me an error. And
I think you're missing a colon, maybe, a property on the attribute.
No, I'm not.
Is let's say setting the group property, is that meaningful to have two assignments? So maybe it's group hyphen index instead of group equal index.
You're right. Duh. I completely missed that. Thank you.
I'm useless for anything actually like requiring understanding what we're building, but I do catch typos.
And we have another issue there. I'm going to make this easier on us.
Yes, please make it easy.
And just fix it. So I think I had a typo somewhere in here in this data source function, because it wasn't giving me the data source back. But ultimately, that's not the important part. What's important is the UI.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
as we can see, there it is.
I definitely agree with you on that. I don't trust the demo gods when it comes to fat fingering when you're hot on the heels of building something. So I totally do sympathize with, whatever we have to pace, let's do it.
Yeah. And so here what we can see is we have this, see how it says product Ecomax? Because so basically, to explain that, we have this group index here. And what the group index basically does, I mean, it's very simple, but it's a very cool feature. It creates these groups based on the product. Okay, so we have the product, which is Ecomax, and it creates a group for all the products in that that are Ecomax, essentially. And we also have up here, we have the a product chooser up here because it's grouped by product. We can also get rid of that grouping, but by default, we have that group in the group panel up here. And we can open up each one of these. And as you can see how it says it continues on next page. And all these other ones below it disappear because it is in fact on the next page. So we'll have to go through the pages. As you can see, we have 41 pages here. So it's a lot of data in here. And we can see then after that, we have these other options here. And jumping back to our code, I set it up here. So it's equal max is the one that's expanded when we load into our app. So again, equal max is expanded when we refresh, right? And that's just the general idea of this. I mean, it's a simple grid, just straight out of our demos. I just wanted to show basically how it works in Vue. Also, we of course have the search. When we expand these rows, it's all very quick and easy. And like when I reload, it takes a second to load the data, but this is, I mean, if you see just this one section here, if I ungroup this, let's say 100 rows, we can see as I'm scrolling, it's all very smooth, very easy. We have over 1,600 rows, or not over 1,600, I should say, nearly 1,600 rows of data. So it's not an insignificant amount of data, and it's loading very quickly, very easily. And this is using one of our demo APIs. So yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean, I'm kind of asking maybe an obvious question again, but how much data actually gets loaded when you load the page for the first time? Is it just one page full, or does it load more than that?
We can do it either way. So we can have it so it loads page by page. So if you go to another page, it'll just load the data of that page. In this case, it just loads all the data all at once. So all the data is, when I hit this refresh button, what happens is it'll just, if I turn off here, so if I go to inspect, I go to network, and I say disable cache, and I refresh, what it'll do is it'll download the entire project, right? So the entire front end app will be downloaded whenever I hit the refresh button because I just disabled the caching there. And so we can see what gets downloaded. And so this is everything that's getting downloaded when we refresh that. Obviously, it would be slightly different with a production build. But, you know, like down here, I don't know if anyone can see it, but for example, we get the, right here, Roboto, that's the font. So we're downloading the font, again, from node module / DevExpress from the CSS file. So just stuff like that, where we just download stuff. We get like this SVG, we're downloading feat.svg. That's just for the icon in the corner up here. And, you know, we're just getting all of our different things here. Like, for example, we get the CSS file, teal material theme right there. And yeah, I mean, it's very fast. That's one thing also I'll mention with Vue is it tends to be a little bit more performant than Angular and React. So a lot of people prefer it for that reason as well. So for like smaller apps, it doesn't require as much, as big of a bundle size. And I mean, of course, this is running on a local network here, so it's about as fast as it gets, but still, it's quite fast. Like, you know, if you compare it to something like Blazor or, you know, even like Angular, it's much faster. And so now what we're just going to go ahead and do is get this scheduler taken care of quickly in the last 5 minutes here. And the scheduler is going to be relatively simple. I'm just going to create a script tag there again. And I'm going to say import DX scheduler from DevExpress view /scheduler. I'm going to say import data from, and that's correct, data.js. I'm going to create that file in a second. I'm going to say const views is equal to week and month. So in our scheduler, we can have different views and we can specify which ones are allowed this way. I'm just going to create a new date object. So this is basically the day that is going to be used. What you can also do is just have it with an empty parameter there. So it's the current time and day. But this date I'm using is old, so it's going to be the 28th of February, 2021. I'm going to specify a data source variable there. And I'm just going to create this data.js file. And in this file, I'm just going to go ahead and paste a data array here. And this is just a start date, end date, and the all day option for some of them. And of course the text. So that's what it takes there. I'm going to go ahead and create that template. And for our scheduler, I'm just going to say DX scheduler. Down here, I'm going to say time zone is going to be equal to America, Los Angeles, because this is where we are. The data source is going to be data source. The current date is going to be current date. Views is going to be views. The height I'm going to set to 700, just like this. I'm going to say start day hour is going to be equal to 9. So 9 a.m. is when we're going to start the day. And the current day, or sorry, current view is going to be the week view. And I'm just going to close that tag up there. Clean it up a bit. And that's just about that. And if we jump back into our schedule.view file here inside the views folder, we can go ahead and import that schedule component there. And inside the template, I'm going to say div class is scheduler. And Copilot takes care of everything nice and easy for me. And if we jump back and we go to the schedule tab, we can see we have our scheduler loaded up right there. So, you know, very easy to create a scheduler. And as we can see, we can scroll through the scheduler, and the scheduler has its own virtual scrolling inside it. Just to make things a little easier, I'm going to zoom out a bit just so we can see it. And of course, the scheduler is very cool. We can go, you know, back and forward by weeks. We can change it to a month view, just like this. We just have data for this 1 week. If we double click on something, we have the option to change it to an all-day event, have it auto repeat with multiple different options here. We can add a description here. We can change the dates, of course, and when we click on one of these, we get this really cool calendar view here where we can change options very easily, and we can see this clock which is animated here. So that's super cool. And of course, we can change the time, all that good stuff. We can say just today. So whatever the today is, which in this case, obviously, it'll jump all the way to today's date, but it's all very cool. We can see up here how it says all day. We can see this one, this book flights to San Fran event and this customer workshop event. These are listed as all day events, and in our scheduler, we just have it at the top, and that just I think that's very clean and easy to read. What we can do is we can drag as well, so we can drag events around to move them. We can double click to add a new event. So if I just say test and say done, it'll pop in there. Of course, this doesn't persist, and we can modify it. We can say drag it around, move it somewhere else, all that stuff. We can expand it as well if we want to increase the time. So it's all very cool, very easy. If we want, we can add another event just in that same spot there. And so we can have multiple stacked on top of each other. And this is all stuff that, we've seen before, so I won't go too much into detail, but the scheduler, very cool feature, very useful, very easy, and probably between, the grid and scheduler, they're sort of my two favorite components, stuff that, you can't really get around because every website, every kind of, I should say, internal website is going to use it in some way. So,
Yeah, you're
yeah,
gonna need this for your CRUD based applications. You're gonna have row data no matter how hard you try to avoid it.
yeah,
So it was a I think we covered quite a lot today. I'm looking at what we got, just kind of default. Yeah, this is quite a lot. The only thing I can think of that, I mean, I don't want to poke holes into anything, but I just noticed that the sales amount, we don't have C2 currency, but we could easily enable that display format. But everything else, I mean, this is a lot. You just got it out of the box. It seems like we didn't do very much, and we were able to get a complete UI. So I think with that, we covered quite a lot in one go around. Thank you for uh, breaking us in when it comes to Vue. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to muster anything.
yeah, sure. I think Vue is very fun to use and it's pretty easy to get started. So it's a great framework, and I think it's definitely gaining in popularity even still.
So are you ready to give up React and completely transfer over to Vue at this point?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but React is still my first framework, I should say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I think that we've just about elapsed all our time. I think we're ready to close ourselves out. Unless you have something else you'd like to add, Gregory.
Nope, pretty much wraps it up. As long as there's no questions or comments in the chat, I think that's just about it for today.
Looks like it looks like we're getting a lot of love for scheduler. I mean, who's not a fan of the scheduler? I mean, how would you possibly know what you're going to be getting to your agenda items without the scheduler to tell you? So, but yeah, I think this is really helpful to see in action, kind of that. Yeah, pretty much our components are ready to go when it comes to any spa framework you may choose, whether that's Angular or React or Vue. So, I mean, really, it's kind of agnostic as to which one you choose. And there are certain advantages, like we said today about Vue. There's, the fact that if you don't really need a full scale enterprise app, you don't need something built totally in Angular, Vue is actually pretty lightweight. So, you may want to give it a try.
Absolutely.
Okay, in any case, I think we're ready to go offline. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to comment later. We'll get back to you. Well, it was a pleasure to broadcast today, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.